Hello, everyone, and welcome back with Perfectly Holistic. I am Pam, and I am so excited to be with you guys again tonight. We have a really cool show. And before we get started, I just wanted to let you guys know that if you are watching, drop us a comment. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're watching from. We'd like to say hello to everyone and share this with your friends. We have a really cool topic tonight. We're going to be talking about Akashic Records. Some of you may have never heard of that before. I was introduced to this several years ago, never had heard it before. I find it fascinating. And the interesting thing is, people have Akashic Records, but guess what? So do our pets. So we're going to deep dive into all of this tonight. Um, and then I've got people watching. I'm streaming through Instagram tonight, so I hope you guys are able to see that, and Facebook and YouTube channels. So hop on, and if you have a question, you can also drop that into the comments. And we're going to go ahead and just dive in. So, welcome, Nina. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having
Welcome back. This is a very interesting topic. And for people who are not familiar with Akashic Records and what they are, let me just read a little bit about what are the Akashic Records. So, the Akashic Records, often described as a cosmic library or repository of knowledge, they're believed to contain the collective wisdom, experiences, and memories of every soul that has ever existed. This concept stems from various spiritual traditions and philosophies, including theosophy, Hinduism, and New Age spirituality. According to believers, accessing the Akashic Records involves tapping into a higher dimension of consciousness beyond ordinary perception. Techniques such as meditation, deep introspection, or guided visualization are commonly used to access this realm. And once accessed, practitioners can gain insights into past lives, current life situations, and potential future trajectories. These records are thought to hold information about the soul's journey through time, including lessons learned, karmic patterns, and soul contracts. They are believed to offer guidance, healing, and understanding to individuals seeking clarity or direction in their lives. And practitioners who work with the Akashic Records may use them for various purposes, such as spiritual growth, self discovery, healing trauma, or understanding the deeper meaning behind life events. Some also consult the records for insights into relationships, career choices, or major life decisions. While the existence of the and nature of the records remain a matter of belief and interpretation, many find value in the wisdom and guidance they purportedly offer, viewing them as a source of profound insight and spiritual enlightenment. So that's a big description, but I think it's pretty cool how it accurately describes and goes over, all of what they encompass and how it works. So, Nina, how did you get into doing Akashic record reading? Were you curious? Have you ever heard of it before? Like, what drew you to this particular subject?
Well, I think it was after I did some animal communication classes. And so
Ah,
the lady that wrote the book, her name is Linda Howe, on how to read the Akashic Records was in 2009. And so I've been doing it since then, off and on, with for a pretty good long time. I have noticed that she has also evolved in her interpretation and how she uses the records. So there's an evolution. At any rate, it was it's like a gateway gateway drug. You go into
yeah.
amplification and you go into lots of other things. So I found it very, very interesting because I had a horse that I didn't know how to heal. It had a foot problem. And so I asked my daughter, after reading the first book, How to Read Your Akashic Records, I said, uh, put me into the Akashic Records. You asked me the questions. And so I said, I want you to ask the question, how can I heal Angelica's foot? And so she, put me in the records, asked the question, and then I answered with a poultice. And this is something that I had not, it was not in my awareness. So I did the poultice, and the horse, got better in her foot. She was healed. So that
Wow.
so got when you have proof that something is working, it gets your attention. So I would say it's accessing information, different. It's an information field,
Yep.
and you can and it can be used for different things. The questions that are best used are how, what, why, rather than yes, no.
Mhm.
It's not supposed to be like a psychic. It's not psychic work. You also There are also principles that I really like. Judge not, fear not, judge not, resist not. In other words,
Mm.
don't be afraid when you're going into it. The other thing is when you're asking questions like for yourself, it's best not to be agitated. It's best to calm down and get centered. You don't have to go into a deep meditative state, but you can be in a state where you're receptive to information and not like open, like
Mhm.
and the information that comes to you will be much more accurate that way. My personal experience for a long time was like having lawyers, helpful lawyers telling you or giving you information, like you can do this, and of course somebody is behaving badly, or of course you're not able to do this because X, Y. In other words, there's a forgiveness, there's a vibe there that is not judgmental, and so it's very, very helpful. That was my first experience. And when I ask about pets, they will sometimes give interesting. Um, they'll give more information if you go into a pet's records. They'll give more information than the actual conversation. So it can be very interesting too. So it's more of a soul level conversation.
Mhm.
I think I like it when you ask me questions. It's easier for me that way.
Yeah, and you know what? I think with any kind of intuitive work, you really do have to be approaching it in a very calm, open-minded state, because
Yes.
if you are feeling any kind of stress or resistance, you're not going to get the information coming through because you're putting up a wall, you're assuming or you're judging, what you're getting. So I love that you said just be open, see what comes. And
Mhm.
if something doesn't resonate necessarily, just kind of set it aside. Maybe it
That's
won't make
exactly right.
sense right now,
Right.
but you don't have to necessarily understand everything. It's
Right.
kind of hard when, we're such tactile, visual people, human beings are used to they're using their normal senses of, see, hear, taste, touch, smell, whatever.
Mhm.
But we're not really good necessarily at tapping into the other six senses like intuition, um, imagination, memory, reason, perception, will, those kinds of things. We're not really taught how to develop that, through our childhood or through our life.
Right.
So we have to go learn how to tap into these areas of the mind and the ability to use these higher level of senses. Um, and in everything that I have learned and, the classes and the courses that I have taken when it comes to developing intuition, you do have to just come to the table with like an open heart and open mind and go, okay, show me what it is I'm supposed to learn,
Mhm.
or show me what it is I'm supposed to hear for my highest good, and don't take that information and be resistant or judgment, but just listen and just, like I said, if it doesn't really make sense, just let it flow past. Maybe someday at some point you'll have one of those aha moments and go, "Oh, I know what that means now."
Right.
You know, some like the animal communication too. Like sometimes you get stuff that doesn't really click and you're like, "I don't know why my cat or my dog is saying that. It doesn't even make sense." So it may not in that moment, but it may down the road when
Right.
something, you know what I mean? So that is so cool. And I want to say hi to Deanna. Deanna, my dear friend from San Francisco, who is our Reiki master here at Perfectly Holistic. She is joining us tonight too. And I'm so excited to have you here. So, again, if you guys are joining in, if you're listening live, drop a comment or a question. If you have a question as we go through our show, we're going to be sharing a reading that Nina did with me. So yes, we're going to be bearing my soul for everybody. One little sliver of it. Anyway, we're going to talk about what happened when we did a Akashic record reading for me and the questions that we kind of dove into. It's fascinating stuff. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of cover? Oh, I know what we want to talk about. I want you to talk about how you were saying, you're just the messenger.
Right.
Let's
That's
talk about that a little bit.
right. I am a filter. If you go to someone else, they will be a filter. Each person comes to whatever endeavor it is, like Akashic Records, for example. Getting information. I personally hear information. Other people are very visual. They may see things, or they may feel things, or they may have a knowingness. Sometimes I have a knowingness, but generally it's like I hear things, and so I write down if I'm in my own records, or if I'm doing this, for someone else, I might be writing down the information, what I'm hearing. I forgot what the other thing was. I was going to say some profound thing.
Well, like you could get different information,
Yes.
different times, different
Yes.
people can get different things.
Yes, you can get the information can also evolve. Nothing is like set in stone, and
Right.
I think as as we evolve, and I think the animals are evolving with us. They're in a helping capacity is what I think mostly, and also like man, they can give. They can get into different realms, spiritual realms, a lot faster than we can. I'm learning a lot about cats. It's totally amazing
100%.
what cats can do. Okay, I'm like, oh man, like bilocate, things like that. At any rate, you might be getting a different reading at a different time. It's an information field. I think, for example, Deanna would also think that like Reiki is an information field. Okay, somebody who does physics is an information field. So you tap into that field and get information, or tap into the Reiki and get information. So the Akashic Records, and I think it's for our universe. There could be other universes that have other ways of accessing information. As we're more computer driven, the information can also be more almost like not just library books, in like the books in the Akashic Record, but they can also be like just information. And I'm not a computer person, but I'm just saying there can be an evolution on many levels.
No, that's a very good description. We are tapping into the quantum field,
Yes.
which is all around us, and it contains all the information that there ever was and ever will be, because it's all about energy and frequencies.
Right.
And energy cannot be destroyed or created. It just is.
Yes.
So it's quantum. It's kind of hard to pin down. And I think as we move forward over the next few years, we're going to be hearing more and more about quantum. Everything is quantum. But people are starting to wake up and realize, oh my gosh, it's really about the possibilities. And that's what quantum really focuses on, is what is possible, all the possibilities that are in the field that we can tap into, seeking information, from inspiration, using our imagination, drawing ideas to us, drawing things from the field of, it's really a fascinating topic.
Yeah, the possibilities. That's something that I'm seeing now, that there are many possibilities, and hopefully we go to the good possibilities. I also have there are a couple of things that were important in my development. The books by Michael Newton on in between lives, Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls, where people who are taken into past life regression, they don't go back exactly to the last soul, or last incarnation or other incarnation, but there's a space in between where people or humans will be deciding what they want to do. And I think that's also kind of associated with the Akasha. Are you following what I'm saying? Anyway,
Yes.
those books were very important. And then there's another one by a philosopher named Thomas Thomas Campbell, and he wrote My Big Toe, the My Big Toe trilogy. And one of the concepts that he has is that when we try to better ourselves, we go for lower entropy. In other words, we break down less quickly, and the universe will help us. So the idea is there's helping forces in the universe. I find that very comforting. And that's kind of
Hmm.
like the Akasha too. That that you got these guys or these uh, masters, teachers, and loved ones that are basically helping us evolve, get information and evolve, hopefully in a better way. Am I making sense?
Yes, and I think Deanna would really resonate with this because she also does Dolores Cannon past life regression therapy.
Ah,
So this is probably making a lot of sense. Am I right, Deanna?
ah.
It's tapping into all of that information. It's really, really fascinating. Um, yeah. Is there anything else? You know what? Let's do this. Can you share a couple of book titles if somebody wants to go do a little bit more digging?
Okay, Michael Newton, who's deceased now, and I think it was in 1999, he wrote Destiny of Souls and Journey of Souls. And they are books that mm, he transcribes when people are under hypnosis. He gets them to a place where they're in the between life stage, and they're planning their next life. Like, what do they want to try to get better at, maybe, or what was a problem in this last life that was keeping you from getting where you want to be in your goals. But when you read these transcripts, you are sure that this is the truth. I mean, some things resonate. And so I was
Mhm.
very much like, oh, this is true. So, it's really just a very spiritual, I think those books are very spiritual. They give you really a lot of hope. Okay. And so,
Can I ask you one more question? I'm going to write this into the comments here. So it's Michael Newton, Destiny of Souls, and what was the other one?
Journey of Souls.
Journey of Souls. Okay, I'm writing this down for people. Okay, that's one set of books.
And then the other is a really, really book is the trilogy. And boy, my name recall is terrible, but it's the My Big Toe Theory of Everything. And it's a guy who he's a physicist, and I'm pretty sure his name, oh God,
It's called My Big Toe Theory of Everything, or
yeah, my big toe. It's basically theory of everything, and he uses a lot of physics in his. You have to kind of like wade through a lot of physics to get to like where I like the spiritual parts of it. But that's
Mhm,
also a very interesting read, and he really emphasizes entropy, the idea of things breaking down fast and or not breaking down fast. So if you have low entropy, you don't break down as fast. And so by doing good, in other words, trying to improve yourself, uh,
mhm,
you break down less quickly. And what he said, and it makes sense to me, is the universe will try to support you because
mhm,
they have a stake in this. The universe is like, being reflected in our actions. We are part of the universe. Does this make
mhm.
sense to you?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, because we do have guides and we do have helpers
Yes. And
out there who have already crossed over, who are souls, who are helping us on a spiritual level. We may not even be aware of it.
yes.
Um, but they are there, absolutely. And from what I remember learning, we all are assigned at least one particular guide, and it could be a former family member or someone we're not really aware of who is assigned to us to be here to guide us through our life. And, if they're called onto another assignment, someone else comes in and takes their place, and there might be more than one. I think that's really, really cool.
That could be like it feels like a divine guardian guide that you
Mhm,
described. But then you can also have lots of other guides for different things. Let's say you want to become a better painter and like an artist, and you could
mhm,
request a guide that's really good at painting that can help you along your journey. I think when you request things, there's a response too, and it's probably that part of that. If you're trying to better yourself in a let's call it a good fashion, not taking advantage of anybody or anything like that. I
sure.
think the universe, supports you.
Mhm,
Some
absolutely.
religions believe that the universe wanted to see itself. God wanted to see itself, and that's why He created the universe.
Mhm.
So there's like kind of like a
Reflection.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about the session that we did together a few weeks ago. This was really, really cool. Um, I was really interested in learning more about like my role right now in my work and my company, my business. Um, was I always a business person? Like, what did I do in a past life? And did it have any connection to what I was doing now?
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first things. And what you found was I have been an entrepreneur in many lifetimes. And especially when it wasn't safe, there was energy and magic. And it's fascinating because something deep inside of me kind of like I can't even put my finger on it, but it's almost like I know how to be a business person, even though I've never gone to business school. There's just something in me that said, "This is what I have to do. This is what I have to do." Um, but it's interesting. You said I was oftentimes the entrepreneur when it wasn't really safe to be an entrepreneur, or at least a woman entrepreneur. Maybe there were times when I was a man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it involved energy
Mm-hmm.
and types of magic, which I think is really cool because magic is all about creation, right? It's it could have been healing arts, alchemy, things like that, which reflects what I kind of do in my current work with all the energy work and using intuition and tapping into the quantum field. Here we go. So that was very interesting to me. One of the things that you saw was that I was one possible lifetime was in Alaska. And it's so interesting. I have to tell you, I'm not a fan of cold weather whatsoever. So maybe that's why I was like really glad to end that lifetime in the cold and be somewhere else because you said it looked like some kind of Eskimo group. And I was possibly a medicine woman, which is fascinating. You know, again, it's all about healing and using plants and herbs and whatever they used way back then to promote healing in the body. And the medicine woman or the medicine man of tribes was a very spiritual person. So that was very, very fascinating to me. Um, One of the other things that you found is that I'm good with numbers and frequencies. Like in my current work, everything I do is about energy and frequency. Energy is a frequency, vibration is a frequency. Um, you looked at my past and there was like chemistry, and I was like, maybe alchemy. And
Mm-hmm.
you said, yes, maybe like in herbalism. Um, and healing with alchemy solutions. And if you think about it, even like prior to the 1900s, when before John D. Rockefeller took over, the modern medicine model, we had plant-based medicine. There was homeopathy, which is energy medicine, herbalism and things like that. So everything was based in natural and it was energetic. We've really moved away from that as a society, thanks to John D. Rockefeller. Um, so that was very interesting. And it doesn't surprise me that it would have been some kind of alchemy versus chemistry or some kind of chemistry working chemically. And you think about herbs and creating tinctures and herbal medicine and plants and all of that. That's it lines right up, you
You know,
know?
can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
It's interesting that you're saying, you're, there's an antipathy to John D. Rockefeller and all that he represents. That could have been subversive back in the day, and it could have gotten you in trouble back in the day.
Yeah.
With the authorities, you might have had to go like,
Underground.
yeah.
I Well, and that's what like a lot of people did. like your spiritual people, your herbalists, your natural healers, like back in the dark ages. And for some reason the Salem witch trials come to mind, so people were labeled as witches when they didn't really understand what they are doing, what they did, how
Yeah.
they worked.
Mhm.
And when people don't understand something, it creates a lot of fear,
Mhm.
and people fear what they don't know and they don't understand. So
Right.
there can be this knee-jerk reaction where the only reason that they can give is, oh, that person must be a witch. So it's funny, how that all kind of came together, and you pointed that out. You also said that cats have influenced me. Um, and there was a cat in particular, I tried to save its life and couldn't. And so that looks like it led to the cat oriented work that I have a passion for now. And that would make a lot of sense, because I think if we all looked deep inside of our hearts as pet lovers, there's always like that one pet that you try to save, or that you had this heart and soul connection with, that you feel like you've spent lifetimes with. And you probably have on some level.
Mhm.
Um, but I find it interesting because there's always like a pivotal moment in our lives that kind of direct change our direction drastically, or that open our eyes to an area of interest that we didn't know about. Um, and saving an animal, or having the desire and feeling like you failed. It's like, okay, next time I'm going to do it right. I'm going to get it. I'm going to save this poor animal.
Mhm.
Um, that makes a lot of sense, because I see a lot of crossover, just like in careers that people end up with in today,
Mhm.
you know? Um, I can't even tell you how long I have been around cats since I was literally born. There's always been a cat in my life, and blame my dad, because he was just a cat lover himself. Um, Another thing that came up was we asked you about current situation. And you shared that self actualization as an entrepreneur and a desire to be successful was kind of driving me, proving myself to others, and that my soul path is evolving, but being true to myself is important to me. And that couldn't be more true. Um, I find myself to be one of those people who is driven by truth and um, justice, um, and standing up for what is right. So
Mhm.
that definitely makes a whole lot of sense to me now. Clearly, it was important to me before, and I think that's one of those cellular memories that carries forward. Um, And as far as business goes, I asked about, what's on the horizon based on what you saw on the records. And you said big changes that are positive, and business is a reflection of how I feel about myself. And I could not agree more. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't. It's like probably if we went into your records again, there would be something additional happening.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not in your records, so I'm not going to venture on any of that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but that feels very much like what I'm seeing in your actually when I go onto your website is you've got lots of it's just moving. It's like you're adding things, and so
Mm-hmm.
progressing in a positive upward direction. Yeah.
Yeah. And things are constantly evolving
Mhm.
in life and business, or whatever. But I do believe the more that I study about just the quantum field, um, the law of attraction, the law of vibration, that is absolutely true. How we feel about ourselves
Mhm.
is reflected in the results we're getting. So
Yeah.
the more confident we feel about ourselves, the happier vibe we're in, the more positive energy we're attracting. Obviously, that is going to have a huge influence on the results we're getting in our life, whether that's business, whether that's relationships, whatever we're attracting. So, and I've seen that over the past, several years when I'm on a high and I'm really positive and moving, then business is going really great. And when my head is not in such a great place or something hard,
Mhm.
difficult trial, comes across my screen, it's like, whoa, your vibe drops. And then as a result, it can affect your business. So it's really important to find ways to get out of those slumps as quick as possible when you're self-employed. Let me just say that. Um,
I would
the
also,
next,
I
go
would,
ahead.
I would say though that sometimes when there's something really bad happening, and you think, man, this is really bad. In hindsight, later you can say it turned out to be a good thing. It maybe pushed you in a certain direction,
Yeah.
or so sometimes these really hard things that we go through can have, in the end, some kind of positive, basically
Mhm.
soul growth or something.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Because I've had I can commiserate, not necessarily in business, but in different regards. So
No. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I have learned just in, over the last few years is, or it's like, I would call it a mantra, you know, things are not happening to me, they're happening for me. And
right,
if we can step back, even in, especially when something, you know, sidelines you, shakes everything that you were not expecting, and it is not necessarily what you would consider something you would welcome into your world.
uh-huh,
You just have to learn how to go, okay, this is happening for me to help me grow, to help me move forward, to help me release something from my past that needs to be let go, to pivot, put me on the direction, the path that I need to be. And the more that we are willing to step back and look at it from that 40,000-foot view instead of being down in the weeds in a pity party, the faster we can move out of it. That's what I have learned.
I would say that those are two principles: acceptance and awareness. So you accept the situation or something doesn't mean that you like it, uh,
Yep.
but and then from that there can be awareness, like how can this help me, or what's my best option now, or how shall I handle this? But also, like, not like, as you say, a pity party. Being open to being,
Mhm.
yeah. So there are certain principles too. There's like mind, I would say, spirit, mind, and also like will. Like, what are the steps you can take? It might not be the right step, like you may have to course adjust. Yeah. It's,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. And the other thing that I was going to add to that is when you can have that awareness
Uh-huh.
and that acceptance without resistance and just look at it as is, okay, it is, it just is like energy, it just is.
Mhm.
Instead of being judgmental or taking it, as bad or good, try not to think of it as bad or good. But then when you look at your life, we can only connect the dots looking backwards. And everything that we've gone through has prepared us for where we are right now
Right.
and what we're doing right now. Even though there might have been some challenges or trials along the way, it's true though. Everything that I went through, working the corporate, not the corporate, it wasn't a corporate job, but a job for 28, 35 years for somebody else prepared me for being able to be my own boss and learning how to get through
Mhm.
all the things and apply what I did for somebody else that now I'm doing for me. You know what I mean? So, and even the trials and things like that, it prepares you for what you are doing today if you
Right.
can look at it from a broad perspective, which was really cool.
And that's also something like to be aware that we're in the present. We're living a life right now, and
Yep.
uh, so like I don't think the there can be like blueprints, and you kind of alluded to that. Like there are certain blueprints, and we for our, future lives. Like we have certain essences, perhaps in our soul.
Hmm.
That for example, you could have an essence of being courageous.
Yes.
Like an essence that that manifest in different ways, but there's not like you're going to be this future person life in this. There's it's subject to change. I think
Yes.
my feeling. I mean,
Yes. Absolutely. The next thing I asked about was, why do I have a fear of doctors? Because I was explaining to you that I was trying to identify any emotional blocks that I was holding stored in my body one day. And I came up with this. There were like 6 emotions that were stuck, in different areas of my body. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. And one of them was fear of doctors. And I was like, well, hell yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I have not been a fan of doctors since I was a child, and I had to go get shots, and that's just, I have a fear of shots too. Um, well, you found in my records that sometime during the Inquisition
oh
is
boy,
when I developed that fear of doctors, um, because I was probably attacked by the non-natural herbal doctors, the people that were moving in a different direction, that were threatened on some level to the more natural, witch doctor kind of herbalism modality at the time. So again, I think it was about people not understanding. Go back to the witch trials, they just don't understand this person's connection to nature and intuitiveness and all of that. And so I was singled out somehow by God knows who during the Great Inquisition. I was probably burned at the stake, who knows. Um, but yeah, it kind of developed way back then, which was mind blowing to me.
yeah,
And then I asked you about the fear of heights, which is another one I do not do well. Like, don't take me up the, side of a mountain and look off the edge. I just can't do it. I'm crawling on the floor, begging to go back down. So I asked you, I said, where does this come from? And you said that I had been driven off cliffs in certain lifetimes. Well, that makes so much sense. I just have a fear. And I asked you what the context was, and you said I was a warrior back then. So that is fascinating. I was a fighter, and I feel like I'm a warrior today, but just in a different sense, because I am all about truth and justice and getting, you know, um, doing the right thing and integrity and standing up for the little guy and all of that. And that's fighting, but just in a different way. It's not so primitive that we did way back then.
yeah. That's right. Going off cliffs is it's a very primal. It can be very prehistoric, a long time back.
Yes.
People, our ancestors drove animals off cliffs. Uh,
Yep.
you know, we can all. I can resonate with that. It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like I will never rock climb. Never. There's no need. There's no reason to jump out of an airplane. I'm not going to do it. I mean, those things are just not in my world, and I'm okay with that. Um, you also said that I went into hiding in lifetimes as a healer and as a medicine woman. And I think it was just to protect
mhm.
myself because there was so much opposition or resistance to the type of healing work that I was doing. Um, and I find that fascinating. Um,
Can I interrupt? It also makes me wonder now. You because I didn't know this. You were describing working for someone else for a long time. You already have these impulses in you on how to do things, but it was almost like you were in hiding
mm,
currently, and before you
mm,
could bring them out. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. Even though it was a totally different career
yes,
field, but
yes,
still, that's true. Because once that little curiosity is sparked,
yeah,
that's all it takes,
that's
right? And then you start to open the Pandora's box and go, "Ooh, I want to learn more about this and more about this and more about this." And even though I was in a different field at the time, in my private time, I was delving into natural health and holistic health and cats and cat health and combining all of that together, and it was fascinating. I couldn't get enough. I truly couldn't get enough. The next thing I asked you about was my future. if you saw anything interesting, that I needed to know about my future. And you said you found that I may be teaching things that I'm not doing right now.
Hmm.
So
Evolution.
interesting.
Hmm.
I've always I've considered myself a teacher in various areas because I've been an instructor in the fitness industry teaching. Never in school or anything like that, but I teach pet parents a lot. I feel like I'm an educator. Um, so that was very interesting that I may be teaching things that I'm not doing right now. So there you go, leaving the door open. And the other thing I asked you about was the most important thing in this lifetime to be aware of right now. And you found being accredited, being a practitioner, and recognition by others, which I think is so spot on. Um, in the arena that I work in, it's dominated by vets. And
Uh,
so if you are not a vet, you are not necessarily given a lot of creds, like, oh, you don't really know what you're talking about, or less credibility in some levels. And I'm not trying to be practicing medicine, but I look at things from energy, right? And I do healing work from the energy side, and that's not what vets do. So it's very interesting, and I am on a mission and have a passion for bringing this side of healing work more to the forefront because people need to know about it. It's really, really powerful, and it can benefit so much
you
on
know,
so many levels.
I'm thinking also there's a connection here with your suspicion of doctors that
Hmm.
vets are like like doctors and in some, not all vets. I mean this is just not at
Yep.
all and but there as a category, for example, and as an industry, for example. So there's a connection there. I feel like with your feeling about doctors in general. So.
Yeah, totally. And I'll confess to you guys, I haven't been to a real, I'm going to say, quote, real doctor in probably 22 years, 23 years. I fired them all when they couldn't fix me. And you get forced out of that box when it stops working for you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did, and I just haven't even looked back because I found options that worked better.
Mhm.
So why would I go back? When you find ways, and I think that goes back to my, previous experience as a healer and a medicine woman. It's like I know that there's things out there that can work better and quicker without harming the body, that work with the body naturally. And it was something intuitive that I knew, but I
Mhm.
didn't know how I knew it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right. Well, it's
Um,
part of your spiritual path too. I mean,
yes.
this drive to keep learning and experiencing. It's just part of your path. So you're how you interact with life in general, how a person interacts with life, what's around us, is
Yeah.
what is part of the impulse for our our soul's purpose, our soul's growth, and so forth. So that's
Yeah.
that's how it's manifesting for you. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. The next question I asked you was about my cats. I wanted to know if any of the cats that I have now, have we spent previous lifetimes together? And you said two of them have been with me in past lives, and I find this interesting. And they're Skylar and Breeze, who are my babies. I would have sworn you would have said Aylin and Gunner, not Skylar and Breeze, but it somehow Skylar and Breeze come up.
Uh,
These little babies.
I don't know how. I mean, that's what
Yeah,
I heard. So,
yeah,
uh, uh, you know, and as these kitties, as the young cats get older, you might know more.
mhm,
I
mhm.
have there's one of my daughters was exploring grief, and so one of her cats, has been instrumental in helping her with that, and
Yeah,
it's past life stuff, also what it physically manifests now. and the other
Mhm.
cat, another cat, is more interested, like for example, in her daughter. So it's they have their purposes, and so it'll be
Yes.
where what you notice with them, like in a year or two or three or four,
Mhm.
like where this is going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing I asked you about was, is there anything that I needed to know about continuing to grow my business? And you said calculated risks.
Mhm.
And it's all about just weighing your options and finding out, what's the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak.
Mhm.
Not literally, but where can you make changes or grow that are going to provide the biggest benefits and less risk.
And also, the whole thing with fear, it's like sometimes fear is a protective device. Do I really want to invest, $20,000 in this something or other? So it's you get information, for example, from the records, but also what you're bringing to it. Like the calculated risk, like taking care of yourself. It's also your personal, how much desire you have for something, what you want, uh,
Mhm.
rather than just like I'm going to do this, and uh, just rushing forward or being impetuous. I don't think it's like that. So I like that. I like what the records told you. Calculated risks.
Calculated risk. Well, and I think the more I learn about changing paradigms, you really, when you learn about who you are, um, and you can look at things that might seem a little scary, like putting big goals out there. A lot of times they seem scary because we just don't know how
Mhm.
it's going to all work out. We don't know how to make it work. We don't know all the steps. There's a terror barrier there that we hit up. You hit that wall because it's all about fear and the unknown.
Mhm.
Um, Not everybody knows how to connect the dots unless you look backwards. You don't necessarily know how it's going to work going forward. You just kind of have to trust. There's a point where, you know, the universe, God puts you on a path, and you feel drawn to that path. You can't get stuck in the fear of not taking the next step just because you don't know. It's all about lack of understanding. So you just learn as much as you can. You try different things. You see what works, what sticks, what doesn't stick. And it just kind of, you continue to move forward on that path until you look back and you go, oh my gosh, look what I did,
Mhm.
you know? So I tell people, don't let fear hold you back from trying something different, because that might be exactly where you need to go in order to break through to get to the next level. So yeah, it is all about calculated risk, and that's all about just learning, right?
Yes.
Learn what you can, gain an understanding, and don't feel like you have to just jump. Just be calculated about it, right? Talk to a lot of people, get information, learn, study, um, so that when you do take the next step, you can go, okay, I may not have all the answers, but I feel good about this next step, right?
Right.
So, yeah, and that was everything we covered in my session. It was really fascinating. Um, I wanted to just let everybody know who's watching that we are offering a special discount if you wanted to do a service with Nina. Um, and I forget what it was. Let me go, let me go find it real quick. Um, She's doing a special offer for anyone starting tomorrow who wants to do an Akashic record reading, whether it's yourself or if you want to explore one with your kitties or your dogs or your horses. It really doesn't matter. Um, she can do them all. So it's really fun. Let me see if I can find what that code is going to be, and I will get it for you. Okay. So starting tomorrow, not tonight, but you can save 15% off this service if you use the code Akashic Records. And this is good through April the 30th. So it's a very short window. So through the end of the month, 15% Akashic Records. and you can go to shop.perfectlyholistic and look under services, and that's where you will find Nina's Akashic Record readings. Do we have any questions from the audience? I mean, there's so many nice comments over here. Deanna says, I have learned we each have a whole team of guides. We don't even share the group with anyone else. I love it. It's like, no, they're all mine. It's awesome. Lori Christine says this conversation is fascinating. I totally agree. It's mind blowing the information you can gain from the records. And Branson Radjaw says, we love you and your work. Thank you so much. I love you guys. We truly appreciate your support and your encouragement. And we love helping your kitties and your dogs and your horses too. Whatever it takes. Nina is a horse lover and she's got horses and you've got dogs. She's learning more and more about cats, which is pretty fun.
Cats are really interesting. And horses have been such a big part of my life that I always thought, oh, I'm just horse, horse, horse. But then I had a big accident, like a concussion. And I thought, this is bad. But actually, it shifted me away from just doing horses and getting into a more, like I like to study, and I'm very philosophical. At least I think I am. So studying different things. Horses take a lot of time. And so I still have the horses, or two of them, but it's something that is quote unquote like looks like it's a bad thing in your life can be later. You go, oh, that pushed me in a different direction. When I took an animal communication class, one of the first reasons I took it was I had a horse I couldn't understand, and the guy said, this horse is complaining about your riding, and I had a complaint. Then having the idea that, oh man, these horses or animals I'm not the superior being. We're all in an equal playing field. It really changed my perception. So the records can also. I think it's not as I don't want to use the word. I have to be careful. Harsh. I think of course you're like this. This is why. It's very forgiving. I think that's my impression. But we evolve sometimes because things happen to us and we don't even know where we're going in our evolution. So I think it's really interesting.
It is. And so if people are curious about like what they might learn in a session, just give a brief, quick overview of things like people ask about. I mean, we kind of covered some of the things that I talked about tonight, but what would you recommend people do an Akashic record reading for?
Now knowing what I know, I would ask like, what is this animal trying to show me? How is it trying to support me? What do I not understand that this animal is able to teach me? I'm basing this, like, for example, I had a horse I could not understand. He was very stubborn, but he was mirroring my stubbornness. And so there are things that, like in hindsight, oh yeah, now I get it. Okay. And so if you're asking about an animal, I would, you can ask about anything, why, those kind of questions, open-ended questions to see not a yes or no type response, but like open-ended where you can have support. Sometimes this is like soul level, but it's also very practical. I feel like it's very practical information. Each person is going to be a little different. I can do, somebody can give me they can ask questions and I can ask on their behalf. You would give your name, your full name, like you would have it on the tax record. Or if it's a dog, you would say like, for example, Fifi owned by X, Y, and Z. So to have to hone in on who we're asking about, but
it's like a spiritual address.
Yes. What I would say too is, you think I'm a little wonky right now. When you go into the records, you feel a different energy. It's not like exactly like Reiki, but there's a different kind of energy, and sometimes other people can feel it too. It's kind of like a spiritual light that you can be. So it's very peaceful. It can be also intense. So Each time is a little bit different.
Yeah. And I love going back and asking things like, why is this animal in my life? And have we experienced things in the past together? And looking at those connections and those relationships. Even looking at like the relationships with people in your family. Have
Right.
you spent previous lifetimes together? Like if you got married or if you got divorced, or how were those people involved, or were they involved before in something else, and how did that work out, and why are they in my life now, and all that interesting stuff. And just looking at like your circumstances, your relationships, like maybe even your goals or your dreams. If you're kind of thinking like, I think I want to change careers, but I'm kind of scared, and
That's
it's going in and asking, did I do this in the past? Like, why do I have this
yeah.
draw to this thing?
What,
Um,
what's the value of doing something? Or
yeah,
how can I benefit from X, Y, and Z? Those are all
yeah,
good questions, uh,
hmm,
like in a positive. Uh, um, yes, those are good questions.
yeah,
How those kind of questions. So anyway, I don't know. It's definitely nothing. I've never heard any bad information come out. Like
yeah.
it's
No
always
shame.
like there's a possibilities and understanding. Like okay, mistakes were made, and
Mhm.
either by maybe by yourself, me, or someone else. But it's a positive. It's if you want to call it loving, that's the vibration that you're going to experience. Some people
Right.
have said it can be like a little bit cold, but for me it wasn't. It isn't cold. Like it's matter of fact sometimes.
Hmm.
Like so, if I'm getting information that is true or I perceive to be true, it doesn't have to be like, oh, you're sitting in like soft, fluffy love right now. If you're getting positive, loving information, I think that's very valuable. I mean, am I making the distinction between how I perceive information?
Well, yeah, I think it's important to remember that this is a record. It's like someone went and wrote it down, like this happened and this is why, and it's like factual, right?
Right.
It's not interpretive. It's not like you're going to a medium.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
It's not about a cheerleading session. It's just like looking back.
and some of it can feel like metaphor too. Like
Mhm.
you're experiencing this, like for example, your desire to be, a business person in a perhaps unsafe environment. It's like a metaphor. Like okay,
Mhm.
what's happening back then? It wasn't safe to come out, so to speak. And so
Right.
it's all like a metaphor. So it helps to understand like why uh, what is happening right now is happening.
Yeah, and put things in perspective, and maybe I think it's all about perspective and looking at things like we were talking about. Things don't happen to you, they happen for you, and you can
Yes,
look back and go, "You know what? That was a learning opportunity. That
yes,
was
yes.
an experience that I chose to go through in order to teach me something." And that I think the lesson is we have to sit back and take the information, like you said, without resistance and just allowing it to come in and go, what am I supposed to learn from this? Because that's why we're here on a soul level. We're here to learn and go through experiences. And
Ideally.
they're not always going to be happy and, unicorns and rainbows. We tend to learn more during the tough times and the trials and the tribulations because we're here to grow as a soul,
Mhm.
not to be on fluffy clouds all day.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's how well put. That's kind of like how I would uh, choose to look at the records as rather than just only like there's angels sitting around.
Right, right. Bronson Ragdoll says animals are so forgiving. Absolutely, they are. And Deanna says, thank you for sharing your reading and information with us. Totally makes sense. Nina, how did you learn to access the records, or did it come naturally to you?
No, I think it's a practice that was developed primarily from the the book that I referenced, the Linda Howe book on how to read your Akashic records. That one was written in I think 2009, and then after that she wrote some other books that were like from healing through the Akashic records, inspired manifesting. Just so I see that she has more titles too. But there's a pathway prayer. It's super. I mean, anybody can do this. And so if you would go, Google pathway prayer, Linda Howe, anyone in the audience can do this for themselves too. It's just important not to. It's important to be centered when you go in, like not be agitated. Also, no drugs or drinking. That's not allowed. Uh,
Right.
because it changes the vibe, and so you want
Yes.
an accurate reading. And
Yeah.
so that's basically I practiced quite a bit. There were some things, some tough things that were going on in my life during that time. So I went to records all the time, to get basically, if you want to call it support. That's why I did it
Mhm.
a lot. And
That's amazing.
so,
That's awesome.
and as I've become more experienced in other things, I'm more aware of like, oh, these animals are. It's one thing to say you have a cat that was with you in a lifetime, but what was it doing in that lifetime? Like
Mhm.
that could also impact your experience right now with the cat, for example.
It's all so fascinating. I highly encourage you guys, if you have never done it, do a session. Even if it's not with us, just find someone that you feel,
Yeah,
you have that you resonate with well and do a session because it's so fascinating and it's just such a special opportunity to take a glimpse into the past and even into the future and see, you
yeah,
know,
and each
what
person is going to be their own. Is going to be a filter, and so you might find someone that you resonate better with, and that is okay. I mean, it's like we're
Mhm.
all on this journey, so
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys. We're going to wrap it up. I truly appreciate your time, Nina. Thank you so much for walking us through the Akashic Records. And thank you guys for joining us. And if you have any questions, definitely just post them in the comments. I'll try to be looking at those if people do have questions. Um, and I guess that's it. So we will wrap up for this evening. Have a wonderful rest of the week and a nice weekend. And we will be back on Monday with a special bonus radio show. So join us at 7 o'clock Central Time right here.
Okay, one,
So,
one last
yeah,
thing. It's
yeah.
it's Linda Howe, Howe is the name of
Oh, okay. Let me just correct that. Linda Howe. That's right? Is the author. Okay, perfect. I will make sure I put that right. Okay, that is posting. Okay, well, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you again soon. Bye, everyone.